We had a very good talk, the Prime Minister and myself, and I think things are going to work out very well between Canada and the United States.
We had a very constructive discussion, and we agreed to begin comprehensive negotiations about a new economic and security relationship between our two sovereign countries immediately following the federal election.
From the phone call to the threats of more tariffs this week, Donald Trump has inserted himself into Canada's federal election campaign. What impact is the U.S. president having? There's mounting pressure on the Conservative leader to pivot his message further. Let's bring back our Sunday Scrum. Ian Bailey, a reporter for the Globe and Mail in Ottawa, Tonda MacCharles, the Ottawa bureau chief for the Toronto Star, and Jason Markusoff, a producer and writer for CBC News in Calgary. Good to see you all again. I mean, we talked about the campaign and Donald Trump, but we'll talk more because I think there's more to say. Let's start with that phone call. When I heard the president talk on Friday, I have to say I thought maybe that we were in an upside down world because the tone shift seemed pretty remarkable. I don't know whether it will hold. I'm not going to start predicting the president, but Ian, let's start with you. Whether you think that there was significance to the fact that the call seemed to be productive by both accounts.
Well, I kind of wondered, what happened to Donald Trump? Was this Donald Trump or someone standing in? And I also kind of wondered, what did Mark Carney say to Donald Trump to elicit this change in tone? The brashness was gone, the bluster was gone, the governor was gone, the 51st state was gone. But so it was a real shift here. Now we'll see how long it lasts. And It's notable that the same day that we saw this nouveau Donald Trump in the White House, J.D. Vance was in Greenland, and he was talking in a barbed and confrontational way about how Canada can't win a trade war. So we have these two sides of the coin here. I think, and this may be lucky for the Liberals who, as the party kind of managing this mess with the Prime Minister, Canadians, I think, have an understanding that Donald Trump pivots and flips and turns and upside down and things can change. And so the Donald Trump we saw on Friday may be gone by next Thursday, and we may be back to the confrontational president we've seen for the last little while.
Although when I talked to Premier Holt off the top, she had the impression, given her conversation with the Prime Minister and other premiers, that we would be sort of on the lower edge of the tariffs, whatever happens next week. I thought that was interesting. I also thought, Tonda, and because you and I traveled with the Prime Minister to Europe, we've heard it a little bit before, but this idea of a renegotiation of the economic and security relationship between the United States sounded interesting too, although that would be something for after the election.
I mean, honestly, the tone change was striking, but the substance of it is not so impressive to me, having covered the NAFTA renegotiation especially. Look, Donald Trump has been seeking to rip up that renegotiated deal ever since he was campaigning to become president. And so him agreeing with Carney's so-called condition for a meeting to have a substantive renegotiation of the deal he wants to renegotiate is not as much of a win as everybody, perhaps the Liberals, would like to think. And tariffs remain. Trump did not pull back on any of the tariffs against Canada. They are threatened to be stacked one on top of the other for cars and steel and aluminum. That's a big deal. And so I think that, the measured sort of approach to what comes out of this is the wise one. And next week is going to be dramatic, we're told. I reported earlier this week that the Canadian officials believe there are 3 layers, low, medium, high, of tariffs coming against other countries, and that maybe they're on the low end. But look, if tariffs get stacked one on top of the other, we quickly end up at 75 to 100% tariffs in some sectors. So it's a big deal, and perhaps I think everybody would be wise to kind of, just be wary a bit.
Yeah, I was saying in the newsroom on Friday, Jason, we're almost calling it a victory just because the president isn't mocking the prime minister anymore. That's the bar we're at. But Tonda's right. The bar is actually much higher. And if tariffs go ahead, and some are much higher in certain industries, that is a very difficult position for the prime minister to be in the middle of an election campaign too.
But, he's he's been seeming like he wants to be prime minister. He wants to be seen as, spending time as, in the PMO with talking to the premiers, doing the international thing, as opposed to where he's completely untested on the campaign trail. The unpredictability is just so remarkably high. I mean, if I read some of the news and reports from the States today, there's the Washington Post reporting that Trump may, reject all advice about different tiers and want just one big universal stronger tariff. The Secretary of Treasury telling Fox that he has no forward-looking advice. He has no idea what Trump will do. And will Carney come Wednesday be seen as this person applying strong retaliatory tariffs? Will he be able to say we've averted the worst? And then what will that mean for the rest? I mean, there will be no certainty either. I mean, we know that it was supposed to be January 20th, then February 2nd, then March 2nd, then April 2nd. Who knows what kind of deadline will loom over us come May as we go into an April 20th election? Yeah,
you're right. We heard there in the last hour Pierre Poilievre get a question about shifting his message to Trump. I'm not sure he said that was going to happen, but his answer was a little bit different. And I wonder, Ian, whether you think the Conservatives are approaching this the right way, or whether we will see more this week about them talking about the trade war.
I think they'll have no choice but to address the trade war, depending how things develop. Clearly, they're when you listen to Mr. Poilievre, he's kind of linking this whole trade war aspects of this conflict to the Liberals, which is kind of consistent with the approach he's taken in the last number of months, even before this election. So I think we're going to see more of that, sort of tying the two together, never talking about Trump and the trade war without talking about the Liberals and alleging Liberal mismanagement of the Canadian economy, and then sort of plugging in the change argument, which is a really strong card, I would guess, for Mr. Poilievre to play. And it's been a consistent argument, and I guess an argument we are going to see right up to April 27th.
Yeah, I mean, the change argument is usually, the change argument is obviously usually the most important argument during an election campaign. The problem is that there has been change. It's whether or not you believe Mark Carney is change or not. So how does the Conservative leader need to address the Trump piece, Tonda, and fight the Liberals? Because there are some people who are suggesting that he should just give up fighting the Liberals and start fighting Trump to make a more compelling argument to Canadians.
I mean, I don't think you'll see that. No. But here's the thing: all elections are about the future, not the past. And part of Mr. Poilievre's prosecution of the Liberal record has all been about the last decade, and even under Mr. Carney, trying to link him to the last decade. Whereas voters are now pretty much focused on Trump and the future and what the future holds. And so he has to figure out a way to track his message and pivot to Trump and the tariffs this week. Otherwise, he will be consigned to the history bin as a trivia answer to a question about another Conservative leader who failed to see that Liberals change their spots. They change their spots in campaigns. It makes them a successful political brand. And so, I think they're smart enough to figure that out, though. Conservatives more than anybody will tell you that about Liberals. So look, I think we're at the beginning of week 2, going to be dominated by tariffs. Let's see. I'm not counting the Conservatives out.
Oh no, especially not a campaigner like Pierre Poilievre. Jason, last thought to you.
No, and the other interesting thing in terms of the change thing is that there's going to be another opportunity for Mark Carney to show change from the past regime the day before tariffs come. April 1st is the day that the consumer carbon tax comes off. So people will see at their gas pumps and on the signs, everybody will see about a 17% sudden drop in gas prices. So it'll be difficult for Pierre Poilievre to keep prosecuting this lost liberal decade that he keeps talking about, a catchy phrase, when people see that this is a major shift, both in the president's tone and at the gas pumps.
I forgot about that. And then they're going to get their carbon rebate. Yeah, 2 weeks later.
Mid-month,
Yeah. Okay, listen. Pardon me?
During the campaign.
Exactly. Listen, lovely spending some time with you on this Sunday. Thank you so much, Ian, Tonda, and Jason. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.